I'm back with another Soul Lane guide for Season 9. Well, my first Soul Lane guide for Season 9. Today we're going to be going over the top 5 characters in the Soul Lane that you want to be playing in ranked right now. Obviously, SPL hasn't started, so when it comes to competitive data, we don't really have that. But I have played a lot of ranked so far. I watched a lot of streams, talked to other pro players, and just kind of, done the research, if you will. I kind of, taken a little bit longer than usual to make this guide, but I wanted to make sure I had everything right because a lot of things got mixed up going into this season, and things are changing constantly. I mean, for example, Axe is the best starter item right now at this very moment, just like the end of Season 8, but going into the next patch that's coming out next week or the bonus patch, Axe is actually getting gutted, so that's no longer going to be the go-to item. It's actually going to be like a battle between Bluestone and Death Toll. So things are just constantly changing, and I want to make sure you guys kind of got the most consistent top 5 picks and, of course, the honorable mentions, plus everybody's build. So we're going to go over all of that to make sure you guys know exactly what you should be playing in ranked right now. I will say, though, like always, this isn't like a set-in-stone top 5. If your number 5 is my number 1 or my number 1 is your number 5, it doesn't really matter. I think I just said the same thing twice, but it doesn't matter. What I'm trying to say is that don't take this too literal, take it with a grain of salt. And there's going to be a lot of viable picks right now because not everybody knows what's like the best 100% of the time. So keep that in mind. And if you're having success with certain characters that aren't on this list, then keep doing what you're doing. Okay. But yeah, without further ado, we'll get right into it. Coming in at number 5, we're going to have Nike. I said Nuke, meant to type in an I there. Nice. So Nike. Not much has changed going into the season for the most part when it comes to just like characters that do well in lane and in team fights. And, Nike didn't really get nerfed going into the season apart from maybe sundering, the sunder options being a little bit stronger. But, she's still a pretty strong character, kind of just stalemates or wins most lanes, has really good range poke. So she can make use of any starter item really because she can keep her distance and not really have to take too much poke and kind of, gives more poke than she takes. But she is going to be going Bluestone. I would say that Axe at this very moment is definitely viable on her, but since Axe isn't going to be very good next patch, I'd probably just be going Bluestone every game. If you're against a physical in lane, go Tier 1 Breastplate. The strength of getting Tier 1 Breastplate plus Bluestone is with other starters, like if you went Tier 1 Hammer here, like Runeforged or Blackthorn or whatever it is, you can only get 3 pots, and 4 pots is that nice cozy spot will be enough, and 1 extra pot over the other soul laner could be the difference between getting your first blue or not. So, and this is where things will get really crazy. What I want to say about Relics is that it really comes down to comfortability and your play style. I've been messing around a lot with Persistent Teleport. It's very, very strong and ranked. It allows you to kind of, have an influence on the map as a soul laner, which is really strong to have, especially in the early to mid game when you're at your strongest. So that's really nice. So I've been messing around with that. Definitely recommend that. To just have a cozy lane, a lane that you can't lose. You can always still go med. That's very strong, especially if you're going to get a CAD shield later on in the build. It's going to be good for you and your teammates. Blink is still a very good relic. You don't really need it in the early game anymore just because you don't want to blink to that first wave because the wave isn't even there, so you don't even really get a lot of pressure off it. Beads, if they have like a Fenrir jungle, Dodgy jungle, and you have no CC minion in your kit. This is not just for Nike. Nike probably doesn't need to go beads first, but just talking about relics in general. So yeah, for the most part, that's your options. First relic. I've been messing around with a lot of Sunder, second relic, beads a lot of the time just to make sure I'm safe, even a little bit of Aegis for the explosion. So it really just comes down to what you prefer in your playstyle and everything like that. But you can never really go wrong with blink beads or even like a teleport blink, teleport beads, stuff like that. As long as you have a ability in your kit to engage, you want to be able to do that. So for the most part, I've been going teleport. So we'll type in that. And we go Persistent Teleport just to be on the map at all times. I like to rush Breastplate on Nike, especially if you're against a physical. If you're not against a physical, just go Runeforge first item into Bulwark and then Breastplate. But yes, I did say Runeforge. The reason we are going Runeforge now is not because Runeforge is good, because it's really not that great of an item. It's just that the other options are pretty lacking right now. Bruiser items in general for warriors and physicals is just kind of bad, apart from Berserkers, and that's why you'll see some more AA warriors in the meta and just being a little bit more cozy in lane and all that. But like Runeforge is kind of the best thing we got, and it's not amazing, but it's just what we have to work with right now. So nothing's really changed there. When it comes to the next item, Bulwark is still a very, very good magical defense item. They nerfed it a little bit, but it's still probably the best. You can mess around with this new Heartward glyph if you would like to do that. I would say that the silence version of this item is not very good because it works on minions, so it'll randomly proc on minions and then you won't have it for gods. This one does, I think, have some value in it, and you could definitely mess around with going that. It's just a little bit more expensive than Bulwark, and every little bit of gold counts. That's 400 gold that you'd spend in the early game to get a better version, but it's not really even a better version of Bulwark of Hope, if that makes sense. So gold is important, and basically with all the glyphs and all the upgrading of the relics and stuff besides teleport, you don't really ever upgrade them early game. It's more of a thing you do late game when you have that extra gold. So yeah, and I've been going Nemean here. And on Nike specifically, you don't really have to worry about sustain. Most characters, you're going to go CAD Shield here and then upgrade your starter item just because CAD Shield's really nice. It's good, usually good for your entire team if they have lifesteal, which they usually will, or maybe some heal or anything like that. But for Nike specifically, you can get away with like a Mantle or a Spirit Robe, whatever you prefer. And also on Nike specifically, you always go the left Bluestone. You don't really ever want to go Corrupted unless they have multiple auto attackers. Maybe they have a double ADC, maybe they have a Nem jungler or a Kali jungler or something like that. You can get away with going that, but this is a pretty cozy build that will work most of the games you play in. You know, some situational items. I actually think Witchblade's kind of decent right now, so that's something you can look to go maybe early game instead of like a breastplate if you're looking for that. If they have a lot of healing, then don't forget to think about a Pestilence in place of this Bulwark. Usually, you know, that's more of a support item anyway, but that's pretty much it. I mean, like I said, these Bruiser items are just really not that viable anymore. It's just kind of sad, apart from Berserkers, but we're not going to be getting that on Nike, although it wouldn't be that bad, to be honest. Yeah, that's Nike at number 5. Coming in at number 4, we have Osiris. Osiris, you can make use of a lot of different starters. You can make use of Bluestone, Destal, Warrior's Act, even Tainted, or even Sigil if you wanted. The problem is he doesn't have Sustain in his kit, so I personally think the best starter item you can go is Destal on him. Physical power is very strong on Warriors, especially early game. So this item has 20 physical power on it, which is the most of all the starter items. So very, very strong. And I like to start it with a tier 1 Berserkers. This allows you to get 4 HP pots. And it's a very strong start in the lane. Oops, an extra one there. So this gives you 10 physical power. This gives you 20. So you're going to have 30 physical power in that early game. It's just going to allow you to out trade. It's going to poke really hard because of the scaling on your 2 and your 1. And it's just really, really strong. I would also be going teleport on Osiris. He's a very good character with teleport just because he's really safe in lane. He has that low cooldown on his ult, very tanky, hard to gank. So you can get away with not having like a defensive relic in the lane. I'd be rushing that Berserkers. Like I said, this is probably the only strong bruiser item right now. So it's very, very nice on these auto attack characters like Osiris, even Bologna if you want to be playing that, even Erling if you want to be playing that, and characters like Gilgamesh. But yeah, that would be your first item. This is where you can kind of just decide what you would like. I personally like going CDR on Osiris. I think it's very, very strong for him. Keep his passive up. Make sure you have your ult on like a 40-second cooldown. You can just be spamming that in lane and out of lane. So I like to go Breastplate here, but you can still go Runeforge, and Runeforge works really well with Osiris because of his, you know, his chain slows, his low cooldown on his 1. So very strong for him, but I personally prefer to go the Breastplate here, and it allows you, you know, late game if you want, you can upgrade that into a one of the glyphs, which is really, really nice as well. Like I said, do not upgrade your glyphs early. It is not worth it. You do not want to be spending that extra gold on glyphs. You want to be spending it on your next item. And then from here, if you like to go an attack speed route on Osiris, then Shoguns could be an option. I personally do not think you need that on him. I think you're perfectly fine with just going more of a tanky build and CDR as well. Since you are going to go that Death Soul upgrade later on, I actually think CAD Shield is a nice cozy item to get right there, followed by your Death Embrace like I just said. You know, CAD Shield works with the Death Embrace, so you get extra healing. So that's also an option. It's just really, really nice. But you could also just go like a Spirit Robe here to kind of combo with your passive mitigations, which is also really, really nice. And you'll be pretty tanky with all these items. Like I said, Runeforge would be here. What I would change about the build is if I went Runeforge here is probably not too much. Basically just go Runeforged into either Bulwark if I need the magical defense right away. If I don't, then I'd get the Nemean here. You're going to be noticing that Nemean is in most builds. I think it's very, very strong right now. They buffed it, and it was already being built a ton last patch, so very, very good item. And then basically the same thing, CAD Shield with the Death Embrace upgrade, or just a Spirit Robe into the Death Embrace upgrade. So nothing really crazy. Pretty standard stuff. Kind of nothing really changed from last year, apart from maybe a little bit of Runeforge in some builds and Berserkers in more of the builds. So yeah, that is Osiris at number 4. Coming in at number 3, we have Sun Wukong. Wukong's a lot better now. I really like his. This is a cozy build I'm about to show you guys, and I really like it on Bluestone, of course, on the old Sun Wukong. That is never going to change, I think, for the most part. I mean, Axe is also good on him, but especially next patch, Bluestone every single game on this character. One cool thing about getting tier 1 Soul Eater as well is not only does it really allow you to rush Soul Eater because it's only 1,500 gold to finish this off and start stacking it, it also gives you 4 HP pots, which, like I said before, if you go like a tier 1 Hammer or a tier 1 like Berserker Shield with a Bluestone, you don't actually get 4 HP pots, you only get 3, so it's really nice for that lane. I personally don't think you need teleport on Wukong. I prefer more of a beads blink route on this character. You can get away with some other relics, especially with this build I'm about to show you, which is very, very tanky. but I prefer like blink beads most games. Maybe if they don't have a ton of CC, you can go blink like Sunder or a blink like Sprint or something. Go the entangling Sprint that roots them. So that's an option. So keep that in mind. But this build is pretty dang tanky. Not something you expect to see usually when you see these Soul Eater Wukong builds, but actually what you're going to be doing is going full CDR right away. Breastplate into Genji's. Could always go Bulwark here, but I prefer just get this max CDR. The passive from Genji's is really, really nice for Wukong when you have full CDR because your 1 and 2 are in such a short cooldown that you can just spam them. And then I go Cat Shield here to combo with the Soul Eater lifesteal. This also gives me protections for each of them, a little bit extra health, a little bit of power, so it helps along with the build. And then I go Nemean, and then we upgrade the Bluestone to the left Bluestone. Never go Redstone on Wukong. Even if they have a bunch of auto attackers, you want to be going the left side Bluestone, and this will be the full build. You're not going to do a ton of damage with this build, but just because you have so much CDR, you're constantly using your abilities, you're constantly just being really, really nimble and kind of slippery in the team fights, it's going to be hard for them to lock you down. You're going to get so much damage off just by staying alive and just kind of using your CDs, so... yeah, I really like this build. You're also going to be healing a lot, like I said, and, you know, go whatever else you really need for that game. Blink beads most games, and you're going to be feeling pretty good. Of course, if you're going for more of a bruiser route with Wukong, if you still prefer that, I'd be going Soul Eater into Shifters into probably... I think maybe Glad Shield at that point. Just kind of go more of like the shield route, even though these items aren't that great. That's why I don't really want to go this route with the Bruiser builds, because I don't think the Bruiser items are that great right now. But if you are going to do that, then finish out the build with some actual damage items like Heartseeker or maybe even like a Brawlers or something like that if they have some healing. But I really like this build, so I'd recommend trying that out and seeing how you feel with it. So yeah, that's Sun Wukong at number 3. Coming in at number 2. We have Cerberus, a little bit of a change here because it's a Guardian. Guardians are definitely very viable right now, especially with how Jade Emperor's currently is. It's a very, very strong item. It kind of just stalemates every single lane, makes it basically impossible for a Guardian to be ganked if you just rush Jade Emperors. So that's something you can look to go. If they have healing in the lane, I actually kind of like to start Tainted on Cerberus right now, but I think you can get away with everything. Axe, maybe even next patch, you could still start Axe on him. Vampiric as well is a cozy item and kind of good on most warriors, just gives you a ton of sustain. But yeah, I've been liking Tainted a lot on him. So one thing you're going to realize is that Jade Emperors is a very strong item to rush right now, but I've also been messing around with Celestial Legion Helm because it gives you 90 power, which is actually pretty good for Guardians, because one thing holding Guardians back right now in the past year is that there's so much PvEing on the map, so many things to actually kill, like, you know, Scorpions before, but there's still like these things on the map to get the flowers for your obelisk and all that. There's just so many camps constantly respawning. You need some power to actually be able to clear stuff, or you're just going to be a pathetic Guardian walking around like autoing camps for like 30 damage, and it's just impossible to clear stuff. So although Jade Emperors is definitely very good, and it's very good for just making it impossible to be ganked, I've been liking Celestial Legion Helm, honestly, so I'm going to go ahead and throw that in there for first item. Of course, I need to show you guys the starting build, but nothing's really changed here. It's not really that big of a deal. You do get an extra pot with this, though. You get a multi-pot just because it's so cheap. And then your Relic. I actually been liking Teleport, like I said, so consider going that. I'll just go ahead and throw that over here just to make sure you guys can see it. But like I said, I've been messing around with Celestial Legion Helm. I've been liking it a lot. It also is pretty cheap, so it can kind of just let you rush into this Breastplate right away. And Voidstone just got buffed, which is a very, very strong item now. So I'd be going Celestial, Breastplate into Voidstone. Then I'd actually be getting a Bulwark here, because Voidstone is not going to be the only magical defense you need for the rest of the game. Into a Nemean, and then I'd upgrade my Tainted into Tainted Amulet. Right there. And then we'd have the full build here. We'd upgrade our breastplate late game. Oh, something I forgot to mention is that for the breastplate glyphs, you're going to be going into the right one if they have a lot of auto attackers. So this one, they have a lot of auto attackers, consider getting the breastplate of vigilance. And if they don't have a lot of auto attackers, then just go ahead and get this one. This one's pretty cozy as an item and pretty nice as well. So basically most games, breastplate of termination, but if they have a double hunter comp or if they have like a Nem Kali jungle, like I said before, go for that. Also in all these builds, consider going spectral in place of Nemean if they have crit items, but Nemean's also very good against crit, so kind of just mess around with that. So this is actually what I've been feeling on Cerb lately, and of course the Tainted Amulet plus Cerb passive just gives you so much sustain. So that's really nice. I will say that late game you do want to sell the Celestial Legion Helm for something else, just because it does fall off a little bit going into those late game fights. So something like Mantle, maybe you could get away with a damage item here, like one of these flat pen items, which are really, really strong right now. You could also get away with just not even building like a Voidstone here if they don't have a lot of magical damage, and instead when you have your Celestial Breastplate, you can actually go into one of these pen items that are really, really strong, and then just get your bulwark after, because maybe you have like a Janus mid or something you don't really have to worry too much about when it comes to magical damage until later on in the game. And you get something like a spear. If they have a lot of healing, you go divine, and then when you have divine plus tainted, you're just basically plus Cerb passive, you're just basically 100% anti-heal on everybody that you're hitting. So that's also really, really strong. So consider definitely going that. These flat pen items are amazing. Mages are hitting so hard right now. So let's try and make sure we can make them work in our role as well, you know? So that's Cerberus at number 2. And of course, before we get to number 1, I want to mention some honorable mentions. Yeah, we'll go with that. Mention some honorable mentions. There's 5 characters in here. I'm not going to show you guys the builds because they're basically the same builds as they were before. What you'll notice in the honorable mentions is that these characters are actually still some of the top characters right now, but they're just always banned. So the first 3 characters I'm going to mention, Bastet, Kama, and Ardio. I think they're all very, very good in solo. Probably still at the top of the roll right now. The problem is they're just banned every game. So that's why they're in my honorable mentions, because you're probably not going to get to play most of these characters in any of your ranked games. So, but the next 2 characters are actually King Arthur and Chalk. So with King Arthur, people keep asking me about a build for him, so I'll show you guys that. So King Arthur I actually think is actually pretty good right now, and I think he's going to be even better next patch now that Bluestone and Deathslow are going to be a lot more meta. The problem is it's kind of awkward to start the game out with him and get a tier 1 item, because you want to go Runeforged as your first item, but you also don't want to get that as like a tier 1 item with only 3 HP pots. So it's a little bit awkward, but you know, you kind of just have to make it work and try not to get poked out too much. Try not to take too much minion damage. But basically, that's what you're going to be doing, and then you're going to be going into Runeforged. Try and speed this up a little bit. Into Sob. You want to have some CD, or not some CD, but some sustain on King Arthur, because he doesn't have any in his kit. So the HP 5 that you get from Bluestone plus Runeforge plus Sov, that gives you plenty of health sustain for the laning phase and for rotating team fights and just these long fights, and just makes him really, really strong and really hard to deal with in lane. Because you're not going that CDR before, you do need to get some CDR eventually. So Genji's is actually going to be the next item. And I still like to go Nemean on Arthur. I think Nemean's just super strong right now. You kind of can't really go wrong building it, in my opinion. So I'd be going that. If you really need a lot of magical defense at this point, you could still go that Bulwark and kind of just go like this physical, magical route, which I think works in a lot of builds. But most of the time, you shouldn't really have to worry about that. So you can go something like a Mantle here, even a Pridwin. Pridwin's still really strong on Arthur. And you upgrade Bluestone to the left Bluestone. Never go Redstone on Arthur. People think it might work because, you know, it speeds up his charge rate on his ult, but it does not really do much at all. So, yeah, and like I said, you can go Mantle here. Consider going Spectral if they have a lot of crit. And this would be the King Arthur build, and you'll be feeling pretty strong with this. Once you get these first 2 items online, it's going to be really hard to outtrade you. Going to be doing a lot of work. And then Chalk is the other honorable mention that I mentioned. The thing about Chalk is, I think for some of you guys, he's probably like maybe one of your top 3 characters, top 2, maybe even number 1. And that's fine. I just prefer to not like really play Chalk as much. I kind of feel like he's one of these characters that can feel extremely OP in some games and then kind of lackluster in others, because it's just really hard for him to like stay committed in a fight and kind of work his way around a team fight for the most part, because his teleport's kind of unreliable, and once you ult, you're pretty easy to commit to. But the thing about that is I think one of the most viable builds on Chalk is actually like just pure damage. So right now I'd either be going Bluestone or Axe, but of course Axe next patch wouldn't be it. But he's one of the few characters I actually think can get away with Sigil, just because he has so much health sustain from his 3. So one thing to think about in all these builds is that Sigil isn't really in any of them. That's just because Sigil is the only starter item that doesn't have any sustain on it. If you look at every single other starter item, they all have some form of sustain, whether it's health sustain or mana sustain, and this is the only starter item without it, and that's kind of holding it back and making it not as viable. So I will say Bluestone's probably for the most part going to be the starter, and he doesn't feel as bad with going this start right here that I'm about to show you. You know, like I said, it's kind of rough to only get 3 HP pots, but for Chalk, it's not that bad just because you have your 3, which heals you a lot. Now, I would probably not most of the time go teleport on Chalk. He can get away with it because he's pretty safe in lane. He stalemates most lanes, and he's not really going to ever like get soloed unless you make a horrible mistake. But the problem with Chalk teleport is that it's, like I said before, it's really hard for him to like chase people down or like, I don't know, instantly start a fight. If he teleports over to something and like he's behind them, it'll be good. But yeah, I think I prefer not to go teleport on him and more go like the Blink Beads route, or maybe like a Blink Sunder route or something like that. So you could still go teleport, like I said, but I think versus like other characters that go teleport, it's a lot easier for them to like teleport and immediately make an impact. But anyway, I digress. the build that we're going is actually going to be Reforged into Transcendence, into CAD Shield. You heal so much with this. Makes your 3 heal a lot. And you're just going to be swinging so hard with all this damage. And then, of course, Runeforge actually does work pretty well on Chalk specifically because he has the Silence, which lasts 3 seconds, so that's good. The Slow on his 3, so he's going to get extra damage during that entire process. So that's really nice. But you still want to go a little bit of tankiness, so you get something like Anemia in here into a Bulwark. And then last item, you'd be going into Bluestone Brooch. If they have some auto attackers, I actually consider Redstone on him because the attack speed that you would get from Redstone combined with his power and the Runeforge passive, you're actually going to hit pretty hard with your autos. So definitely consider going Redstone if they have some auto attackers. But yeah, this would be the full build. If you're going for more of the pure damage route, like if I was going to go more of it like pure damage route right here, I wouldn't even go the Nemean. I'd probably just get something like a Jotuns and then upgrade this bad boy into the healing one, the Vigor, and then probably go into like a Heartseeker, and then finish out with the Bluestone Brooch, like I said before. This could also work, but I think, you know, you still want to have like a traditional frontliner and Chalk with this build, plus the Nemi and everything can kind of fill that role. So you don't want to just get insta one-shot when you blink into a fight. So yeah, that would be the Chalk builds. And last but not least, those are the honorable mentions. Went over the other characters. Who is going to be number 1? Who do you guys think it's going to be before I tell you, huh? Who do you think it is? Okay. You guys probably said everything. It is Amaterasu. She is not showing up. Where? There we go. Amaterasu is coming in number 1, and she got buffed going into this patch, so it's maybe not too much of a surprise. I mean, they literally buffed her 2 damage, the mirror, the full reflect damage to 420 from 380. I mean, 420. I mean, that's no wonder the character's number 1. Am I right, guys? But she's also going to be going Destal. She is one of these characters that's kind of like a hybrid auto attack / ability warrior, so she can get away with a lot of different starter items and a lot of different items in general. But the cool part about these videos is I'll show you what I think is the best build, and you could probably build this build every single game and feel pretty good. So Destal into Berserkers, your 4 HP pots, of course. Another character that can definitely get away with Teleport. She can get away with pretty much any relic in the game, which is kind of funny. She's just one of these strong characters. She's such a hybrid character that she can get away with everything. Beads, Frenzy is really good on her, especially with the Shoguns that you're going to be building. Can kind of combo well on those objectives because of her passive. The only thing I probably wouldn't go on her is Blink. You don't really need that. You can engage with your dash and your movement speed. Sprint is also very viable on her. If you just want to start med to have like a really easy lane and kind of 2v2 with your jungler, that can also work. She can get away with pretty much everything. So yeah, that's definitely something to consider. Even Bracer. I've been messing around with Bracer, and this upgraded Bracer right here, 20% increased power and 20% movement speed for 8 seconds, basically always up, is just so strong. So yeah, I'd say the coziest thing is probably med, especially with the rest of the build that you're going to go, because you're going to be getting a CAD shield and a Death's Embrace, so you're just going to have a lot of healing to deal with. So I'd start with med. If you need beads, I'd go beads second. If you don't need beads, then maybe med Frenzy or maybe med Sprint is probably the best route that you can go. So yeah, you're going to rush that Berserkers, then into Frostbound, the only character that's really going to be going this. This just makes you very, very hard to deal with. You're just going to be able to run people down. You're going to be able to solo the enemy solo because you have percent pen here and a lot of damage and attack speed. So if they don't actually respect you, then you're going to be able to solo them out. If you need magical defense right here, or don't need physical defense, in other words, then you get the Shoguns into the Nemean, into the CAD shield. But you can also, like I said, if you need that physical defense, especially if you're against like a physical jungle and a physical solo and you're fighting a lot, then get the Nemi and then get the Shoguns and then get the CAD shield. Upgrade this to the old Death's Embrace. And then, you know, your med's going to get some value from the CAD shield. Your Death's Embrace is getting value from the CAD shield. Just your Ama 1 that heals you a lot is going to get a lot of value out of it as well. And you are going to be pretty tanky with this build, but the most important part is that you're going to be very threatening when you dive. You're going to be able to solo the ADC. These block stacks are going to help you with that. The attack speed reduction for boss bound is going to help you with that. The amount of attack speed that you just have in this build, plus the healing you'll get back from Death's Embrace, it's just very, very strong, and that makes this character very, very good. Another thing about Ama is that she's one of these warriors that thrives in Guardian metas as well. And Guardian meta is, I wouldn't say it's exactly here. Warriors are definitely still good, but Guardian's a lot more viable going into this year in this season. So Ama is a lot more valuable because of that, because she's one of these characters that can kind of keep up with these Guardians. If they poke her out, she can heal a lot with her one. She can rotate really easily and out-rotate these Guardians who are busy trying to clear buffs that they can't even clear. And then, of course, she also has a pretty strong late game, especially if you can get like a Frenzy or something and just be really strong for your team, kind of be like that strong presence in the middle of the fight that's going to help your team out a lot. So that would be Ama at number 1. And that is it, guys. Those are the builds that I've been going. the characters that I think are good right now. And like I said before, just some things still have to settle. The meta has to settle. And, I haven't even started scrimming yet. Once I start scrimming, I'll probably learn a lot more. 2 things to mention is that, one, there's no Achilles. I do think Achilles is still viable, but he got a lot worse because Achilles is very, very strong in metas where you trade a lot in lane and you have early game power. Axe got power taken away. It's no longer going to be viable next patch. Blackthorn got basically taken away, and Runeforge is not very good on Achilles at all. So they definitely hurt Achilles big time. And the Axe was probably the biggest thing, just because Achilles with Axe was so strong because he just procced it every time with his 1-up. And Achilles also has like the best auto attack cancels in the game. So if you have all that early game power and you just trade in lane with those auto cancels, you out trade everybody. But that's just something you won't do anymore. It's not going to happen. And these characters that can kind of keep their distance with bluestones, such as like a Wukong, a Nike, even these like Guardians or characters like Artio and Kama, like they're just gonna be able to keep their distance and kind of out trade Achilles by just not allowing him to auto attack cancel with all that physical power that he used to have. So that made him a lot worse, but I will say he's definitely still viable. And the other character you probably didn't notice is Odin. I think Odin is a lot worse after the nerfs. He's gotten nerfed a few times now. Plus Phantom Shell. Before, carries, they'd have to go into Phantom, which they did not want. They wanted Beads and Aegis. But now they can go Shell, which also helps them with the dive, or it helps them kind of like an Aegis would. But they can upgrade it into the Phantom Shell. So if they're like playing like an Oleron, a Hell, these characters that are just going to get hard owned by the Odin cage, or maybe in like a Hachiman, they won't feel as bad now because they can go Shell and just upgrade it into Phantom Shell, and it will help them with the dive and also get them out of Odin cage. So that made him a lot worse, plus his cooldowns being nerfed. So yeah, that's kind of why both those characters weren't mentioned here. And that's pretty much it, guys. So that is the top 5 guides and their builds in the soul lane right now. I know I rambled a bit there, but I need to eat some food, okay? So hopefully you forgive me. Let me know what you guys think of the gods and their builds. Let me know what you guys have been having success with in the comments, and I'll let you know what I think, hopefully. Like I said, teleport has been the most fun thing so far, and just having impact on the map. That's something that we don't usually get to do, so try it out. And I'll see you guys in the next video, so stay safe and healthy as always. Peace out.